It was a shocking sight. 11 starving fishermen stranded on a remote island, desperate for help.
They were all standing and with arms waving and flags, anything they could get their hands on, pieces of clothing. It was like a scene out of Castaway when we got there, the way they'd set up shade. And they were digging, there was holes dug, you could see. I don't know what tools they had, but they dug holes, we think, looking for water. So literally something out of a Tom Hanks Castaway movie.
The men were Indonesian and had been stuck on Bedwell Island, which sits within a protected Australian marine park, for 6 days. It's believed their boat was wrecked during the crossing of the powerful Tropical Cyclone Ilsa. The group was spotted when an Australian Border Force plane flew over the site, which is about 300 kilometres west of Broome, during routine patrols. While it's unclear whether the men had been illegally fishing, the priority was getting a Broome-based search and rescue helicopter to the scene.
When we arrived, we were unsure still whether we were going to be able to land. So we decided to winch our rescue crew person down to assess the stability of the surface, whether we thought we could land. And turns out, after having done that and the dust cloud that we threw up, that a decision was made not to land and to winch the survivors back on board.
The $38 million helicopter is state-of-the-art, but limited fuel reserves meant the clock was ticking to get the men on board and make it back to shore. Winch operator Joel McKenzie assessed the scene.
I was actually expecting the worst after knowing that a cyclone had been through there at such high category levels, so it would have been very windy. Considering how long they had been without food and water, they were in okay health, but severely dehydrated. So there's several ways we can winch. On that day we chose to use a basket, which we could put 2 of them in at a time, and I was holding a high line, like a rope, and the winch operator could lift the basket over the water and into the helicopter, because we were a long way from Broome and fuel was in the back of our minds. We had to get back to Broome. So yeah, to do it quicker, 2 at a time. So there was 5 winches with 2 of them, and then the last guy came up with me in a rescue wrap.
Adrenaline was pumping, but the rescue went perfectly to plan. On the helicopter flight back, the men revealed that most of them had been aboard the fishing boat that remained wrecked on the beach. But a second vessel had sunk in the storm. One man had survived 30 hours in the water, clutching onto a jerry can before making it to shore, reporting that 8 or 9 other men had drowned.
Strange emotions go through you in those moments. The young fella that was communicating through the Google translator with Jimmy was, turns out, was the only survivor off the boat that had sunk, and he had lost other family members, it appeared, so very sad, very sad. He was a very lucky boy.
It's quite a tragedy for those involved and their families. I commend those efforts by the rescue people and looking after them, because the events that they've gone through must have been so traumatic.
The rescued men were treated at Broome Hospital and released. Miraculously, none were seriously ill or injured. They've since been deported back to Indonesia, with government officials releasing footage of the men being processed at a local airport. While there's no suggestion the men were doing anything illegal, there has been a big increase in the number of Indonesian fishing crews entering Australian waters in recent years, with some setting up makeshift camps on islands close to shore, and others approaching Australian tourist boats asking for water and directions. While there have been tearful reunions for the fishermen who survived, Indonesian villagers are grieving the lives lost at sea. And they're reporting another 2 boats that set sail in the weeks before the cyclone are yet to return home. Their fate may never be known.